India and Pakistan exchanging like missiles flying between India, Pakistan, explosions in Kiev. Oh my god, are we at war with India now?
You can have an opinion on Russia when you move to Russia and have your opinion from there. And when I stop waking up from Shahed drones, then you can have an opinion on Russia.
I love the Ukrainian like end of the world mentality, which I think I really miss every time I leave Ukraine.
Parents creating problems, solving them, and then blaming you for not participating is like a tale old as time.
But that's how we always spelled it. I was like, yeah, we also had slavery. Should we start doing that again?
Like once you let Russians in and
It's hard to get them out.
It's like roaches, yeah.
And I stand up very straight and I just stare him down.
It was the first time where I really, really felt like so understood.
Welcome to Unmasking. Yulia, what are we talking about this week?
We're talking about a lot, but for it to make sense to you if you're coming into this episode, I highly suggest that you start with a previous one, which we're going to link somewhere right here, hopefully.
Or if you're a rule breaker, you can watch this episode and then the next episode the way I would do it.
Yeah, I mean, it is a two-part episode. We've just changed sort of to like, you know, give you a bit of an oomph and
keep you guessing.
And so it would feel like it's actually two episodes and we didn't just, you know, leave you on a cliffhanger about Lithuania in the previous one. But yeah, we're going to be talking about my trip to Lithuania, your trip to Ireland, kind of like the things that we found out there that were shockers in some ways. And I think a bit about the future because there is a lot happening in our future.
Hopefully there is one. Let's be honest, whatever the world is.
I mean, yes, and Areshnik can kill us today, to be fair.
Hence why we're wearing this, because there might not be tomorrow. I love the Ukrainian, like, end of the world mentality, which I think I really miss every time I leave Ukraine.
I mean, I also kind of, like, love the Ukrainian shared things mentality, like, oh, let's change. Yes, sure. What do you have in your closet?
Do you think it's a Ukrainian thing?
Oh, 100%. Oh my God, dude, like when I moved to the US for the first time, the thing that really like surprised me is that when I would knock on my neighbors' doors, like people that I didn't know, and ask them for sugar or like if they have milk or something, they would look at me like I have three heads. What surprised me a lot is that in Lviv, you would do that. Also, like literally everywhere in Ukraine, you would do that. It'd be fine. Like I'm sure if I walked up to my neighbor's apartment right now and asked them for sugar or milk, it would be not nearly as weird as it was in the US.
I almost want to test it out at some point. We might have to do that. I'm very curious.
Actually, yeah, we might have to do that. I mean, if we show up with cameras, eggs. It probably would be weird.
We should ask them for eggs in America. Nobody will give you eggs. They're too expensive.
Yeah, now they are with the tariffs. You're right. You are coming in hot, dude. But yeah, I mean, I do find it very funny how like Ukrainian people are just so used to sharing. I've never like people when they come to your apartment in the United States, like they don't just like pick up things and don't look at them. Here, everyone is like, "Oh, what is this?" And they just like look at it. And I'm, you know, me with my like little
things,
pseudo OCD about how I like my things. I'm just like. Record scratch.
I honestly, personally, I struggle with that stuff in general, and I never thought of that being like a Ukrainian thing. So I struggled with it because I'm a Ukrainian. Because my main thing is that I've always had a very like small boundaries. Like I don't need much to be comfortable. But like for example, my sister, who I grew up with in the same household with the same parents, she has a lot bigger personal space and boundaries. So like I always feel like I have to be mindful of other people's boundaries. But now that you say that, I do think people, like in my experience in America and Australia, would be like less willing to give you like their clothes to wear for a party that like Ukrainians girls would, because like they would kind of give you something they don't wear or like something they grew out of. But I feel like if I or you know, like would give our clothes to like a close friend, you would be like, here is my most expensive dress, please wear it. Yeah. Like you will look amazing in it.
Yeah. It's a very Ukrainian thing to do. Yeah.
What else do you miss when you travel, you know, outside of Ukraine? Because like I was thinking about that a lot because it was my second time leaving Ukraine since I moved like post the full-scale invasion. So, you know, the first time I went, I didn't think of that as a pattern. And this time I was like, oh, it is a thing.
Yeah, I think it's the availability. Thank you for doing it.
Oh no, they're slobbering on me, so it's a
Maeve does this all the time. So for those of you who are less fortunate and are not watching this but listening,
It's not me snorting.
my baby dog loves grooming my older dog, and she's also very loud as she does that. And sometimes it happens in the middle of the night, and she just like randomly does this, and she also slobbers like
And snores. So it's also not me snoring when Yulia talks.
Yeah, she produces a lot of saliva, so at some point it starts dripping on you, and it's like my least favorite thing. I know it's cute because she takes care of her, but like, God, do I really not
I
like
did
this?
kind of accidentally touched some and was wiping it back on both of them.
Don't.
No,
Enough, don't let her do that.
Enough. Enough.
Anywho, what I usually miss when I'm abroad is the instant availability of good coffee, because I feel like Ukraine doesn't have chain coffee places like this.
Not as much.
Yeah, we don't have as many of them. And if they're a chain, it's like 3-4 of them, not like 78, you know? And well, like in Poland, I guess my typical thing that I do when I go to Poland, which I can't believe I'm saying because I never get Starbucks in the US unless I'm on the road somewhere and I stop at like a rest stop or something and there is a Starbucks, but like I never willingly go to Starbucks. And in Poland, my like normal thing, and it's like a check mark that I need to scratch, or an itch that I need to scratch. I go to Starbucks and I get a lavender matcha latte.
Interesting.
Iced. But so
I thought, sorry, I just, the face I made was because I realized that for me to get decent coffee that I know that's not going to be like really bad is actually a McDonald's coffee on the train station, because I know that's like, you know, it's a level that like it's okay.
in Ukraine?
No, in Poland, like when traveling.
Oh,
So-
just go to Starbucks.
I don't think they have a Starbucks on that train station that I'm talking about, like a Warszawa Wschodnia or whatever that I use. But it's just like, for me, it's like, at least I know the coffee's okay there. But I usually just bring in drip packets from Ukraine and drink it there
nice.
because I refuse to drink that coffee.
I mean, I've had a fair share of bad coffee. I do gas station coffee sometimes, but it's because I drive behind the wheel. Which, by the way, I am so mother effing proud of myself, because here's the thing. And I'm going to call my mom out on this because, okay, this is such a convoluted thing. We gotta get there.
Okay.
So, when I was a kid, we did a lot of road trips with my parents because we just prefer road trips to flying because you see more and you stop in like random places. So my mom and my dad have done a lot of long haul drives through Europe. Like these people can be behind the wheel for like 20 hours and they'll survive. Yeah. So my mom, because I didn't own a car in the US, for some reason believes that I don't have the experience of driving long haul drives, okay? Funny thing is that I think the closest I've ever driven from New York to somewhere was Boston, which is 4.5 hours to 5 hours. I used to do almost every other weekend trips to my boyfriend's parents' house at the time, which is 6 hours because he lives kind of like further in Massachusetts. I've done a lot of, like, my shortest drive in America is 4 hours. I do long haul drives, like, come on. But anyways, my mom, like, it was just so funny because I was like, I was a bit, you know, it like, it
Irked
ticked
you,
me,
yeah.
ticked me, because she called me and she was like trying to be super supportive, and she was like, oh, it's like, you know, because you don't have the experience of doing this, but you will. And I'm like, ooh, thank you, Mom. Yeah. But so anyways, I did a 17-hour drive the other week, and it was from Kyiv directly to Warsaw. That 17 hours included, but not limited to, stopping over in Lviv for literally 5 minutes to switch my car with someone else's car, because my car has American tail lights, and so turn signals are red, not yellow, and in Europe they don't allow that anymore.
Interesting.
In Ukraine they're gonna stop allowing that soon too, but in Europe, like, you can't even enter. Like it's just like you'll get ridiculous fines everywhere you go.
And you were going through several countries, so it's
Yeah,
just not
so I
worth it.
switched the car. It was 5.5 hours at the border, and then it was till Warsaw. So it was basically a 17-hour drive, and I did it all in like one go, and I was the only person behind the wheel, even though my friend Aliona was with me. And I am so grateful to her because she was tired. I was tired, but she like understood that she needs to stay up for me to
Entertain
like,
you?
and entertain me.
It's this important job to be
No,
the second
she
driver
was
who
like-
just yaps the entire time so the driver doesn't fall asleep.
She was a
My job
fantastic
usually.
passenger princess, and also like she chose subjects so well, because Basically, I met Alyona at a birthday party of my friend Yulia Tymoshenko, who was a co-host in one of our episodes. And Alyona got into the same fellowship for disinformation as I did. And she was at Yulia's birthday party, and I was like, how are you getting to Lithuania for this fellowship? And she was like, oh, I mean, they only put you on a bus and then a flight from Warsaw. I'm like, perfect, I'm driving, do you want to come with me? And she was like, yes. So we basically became really good friends throughout that 17 hours because it was, it's a bonding experience. So we started with
the 5 hour on the border alone.
Yeah. We started with like family stuff, friendship stuff, whatever.
Trauma bonding.
And then by the end of the night when I was falling asleep, she was like, let's talk about toxic men.
Ooh.
Instantly woke up. Instantly. But also now we're like close, because we know so much about each other. But yeah, so...
It's a good tip. If you ever want to get close with someone like in a short term, go on like a long drive for some reason.
Oh yeah, be stuck in a car. But it's also good that we like matched, because it's a stranger. Like it's literally we're strangers.
Very awkward.
But so anyways, we had this bonding experience, but also a 17-hour drive that I'm very proud of myself. Thank you, Mother. I am used to long haul drives and I'm freaking fantastic at them. If you're watching.
Now, I really quickly just share what irked me with my mother in the last 2 days. You reminded me and I felt like sharing because maybe you'll understand. Mm-hmm. So my dog, who is beautiful and lovely and I like her very much, but she's not an easy dog. Mm-hmm. She is quite smart and very stubborn and she knows that she's pretty. Mm-hmm. So she, I think, actually gets frustrated when people ignore her and like don't walk past. Like me and you were sitting in a cafe and you saw how like she would bark at people who would pass her without giving her attention.
Oh, yeah.
Which I was confused by that before, but I figured that, like, she's actually just being a little brat, in my opinion, at least.
She's bratty.
She's not eating properly, so we're having some moments. And my logic, after talking to a lot of my friends, after talking to her previous owner, she was just like, give her the food that she's supposed to eat. If she doesn't eat it, put it away, give it to her during a different mealtime. Like, eventually she'll eat. Yeah. She's just being shit. So I was planning to do that. I live with my mother. And she has the kind of the Soviet Union trauma of like, oh no, you're starving it to death. Dude, she comes up to me. So she went and bought, I've been thinking about giving Letty like natural foods, like meats and stuff. And actually prepare the meal myself, which I don't have time nor energy to do all of that. She goes out of her way to buy some meat for Letty. And then out of nowhere, she just sits there in the lounge and like in the midst conversation says to me, by the way, I will not be a mother to your dog. And I'm like, what? She's like, I see you trying to push all of the responsibilities on me. I will not be a mother to your dog. And I was like, wow, I did not know this was happening because she, in her mind, obviously there was something happening between me, the dog and her. I was oblivious to that entire situation. So we had to redefine some boundaries and I just got a little taste of what it's going to be like when I'm going to have my own children.
I mean, listen, parents creating problems, solving them, and then blaming you for not participating is like a tale old as time. My dad does that.
I think maybe it's a particular age, like, like opens with a certain age type of experience because it recently started happening and I'm like, why?
Well, I had a situation. So my dad is a helicopter parent. I mean, like everybody knows that, right? And he like loves to hear about...
I still haven't met him.
You have to. It like explains so much. But basically, he like... I have a problem. I don't ask him to solve it. He starts solving it. And then he starts coming up with things that I need to do because he's solving it. Then I'm not ready to do these things because I didn't even know he's solving it. And then he gets mad at me for not participating in his solving. And then he tells me that he's never going to solve things for me again. And I'm like, but I didn't ask you to do them in the first place.
I just shared an experience. Yeah.
Yeah. So we were talking about the things that I miss when I'm abroad, because I'm going to ask you that too. But coffee. So you know what actually shocked me in Lithuania, and that's not the cliffhanger everyone was waiting for and you included. There are almost no non-chain coffee shops. Yeah, and there was a Lithuanian influencer with us at the program who lives in Vilnius. And at some point, so first of all, we woke up at 6:30. We were out of the hotel by 8.
Can you give some context on what your trip is in general?
Yeah, I will in a second.
Okay.
Yeah. And we would come back at 11 or 11:30, and then I would have to work for 2 hours or something. So basically I had 4 hours of sleep. At some point we were having lunch, and we opted in to eat our lunch as fast as we humanly could. And then for the 10 minutes that we had left, we ran to a nearby coffee shop to actually get coffee that we wanted. And the guy was like, oh yeah, this is a good coffee shop. It's one of the only non-chain ones.
Oh.
Yeah, and it was like a cute little kind of like local, independent coffee shop. But the thing is, like, I thought about it later, and yeah, most of the coffee shops are like Vero Coffee, like like off-brand Starbucks kind of things, like right, that love these like sugary drinks. Like I think
Yeah.
I ordered an ocean blue matcha or something, and it was basically matcha with like some blue whatever. It was just like sugar, sugar, sugar. But that's kind of like the thing with Lithuania.
Interesting.
But so why I went to Lithuania, and this is going to be hard to describe because apparently I can talk about what happened and what we were doing, but I can't quote things or talk very much in specifics. So it was a fellowship from Aspen University, Germany, where you apply to this fellowship and you get to basically meet like-minded people who are interested in disinformation online, who are mostly influencers or like political influencers, like basically people that work in social media. Yeah. And it was kind of to understand disinformation better and also to know how to combat it better. And just, it's kind of like, I call it a disinformation fellowship, literally. So we did a couple of days in Vilnius.
You should be careful calling it disinformation fellowship. So
not
it's anti-disinformation.
Yeah, not learning how to
I have that
produce.
mistake because I went at work. We have the war crimes investigation unit, and because we're work there, we often will just call them the war crimes unit, and people who don't know it, they're like, the what unit? So it's the same thing. This information fellowship coming from a Ukrainian might sound bad.
So it's an anti-disinformation fellowship, and it was very packed with information. I mean, it was 3 days in Vilnius and in Lithuania, and I've never been, and then it's going to be 3 days in Berlin in September, and then there's going to be like online stuff in between. And it was super packed. Like, it was so intense, but it was very good. I met a lot of people that I'm like so happy that I've met. Some people from Czech Republic, a Romanian political influencer, also people from Lithuania, from Latvia.
You should share, like, especially the ones that are like in political sphere. You should share with me. It's interesting.
Yeah, but they also mostly post in their own language. Also, I met a girl from Hungary that was really cool. Anyways, I've made friends and also people that work in the same field and are also interested in the same things, and it's very cool. But also we spoke to like the Lithuanian Stratcom, military Stratcom. We met with people from Delphi, which for those of you who don't know, they're like the biggest fact checkers in Europe. They're kind of like the New York Times of Lithuania, but cooler because they do fact checking. And they're like an awesome publication.
A beautiful way to just diss New York Times.
Well, yeah, because the New York Times doesn't do fact checking lately quite a lot. Anyways, but so they're very cool. And it was honestly one of the coolest things. We also went and met with some Lithuanian MPs. We met with some representatives from the German embassy in Lithuania. Cool. Like, yeah, there was a lot going on. We also met with some people from TikTok. I mean,
how was that?
Oh, useless, honestly. And
it's interesting because weren't there literally news, was it like last week or the week before, that like Europe is about to ban TikTok because of like ads that are targeted?
Well, I don't know, but the point is that like people from TikTok usually are not like allowed to answer a lot of questions. So like when we were bringing up like actually relevant information, it was like hard for this representative to like really talk about it. So they were just like reciting policies and stuff. Yeah,
you wouldn't be able to ask them like the questions that we really want to know. Like, are they banning, for example, the topics like Ukraine or like Israel or stuff like that?
But it was more of like, I was saying that you guys have literally zero communication between the creator and TikTok. Like, this is the only platform I know where you cannot get through to a real person.
No, yeah. Like if they say that your content, for example, is not authentic, and you're like, well, no, it is authentic. It's me. I filmed it. I edited it. Like, how can I prove to you that it is authentic? And you just say like, fight, fight their decision.
Appeal.
Yeah. And it's just like, appeal declined.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all the communication you get.
Well, it's just like all AI generated messaging, but it's literally even at Meta. Like if you annoy them enough, you can talk to a real person through email. Yes, it's going to take days, but it's still going to be an actual communication with a person. Never on TikTok. There is like zero reach back to creators. And so anyways, like everyone was very frustrated with that. And like there weren't that many people that actually are on TikTok. But anyways, all in all, it was a very great trip and I'm really happy that I went. And it was like super interesting. But so here is the thing that shocked me in Lithuania. One, First of all, Lithuania is like super Ukraine supportive, and I mean like from the annexation of Crimea, in front of our hotel, there was this building that literally looks like abandoned, and there is a graffiti, like a beautiful mural of a Ukrainian woman in like traditional Ukrainian clothing, and it says like "Slava Ukraini," "Fuck Russia," whatever. And so it's the Russia House, and it was supposed to be Russia's cultural house, and they froze it like as a frozen Russian asset the day of the invasion of Crimea.
Wow.
So that was really cool because it was like literally in front of our hotel. Secondly, like everywhere you go in Lithuania, there are like Ukrainian flags, and I mean like in the most like ominous locations. Like I harassed my new friend Paul. Well, his name is Paulius, but he's an influencer, and he does a lot of stuff, but he also like calls out a lot of disinformation. He's really cool, but he does it in Lithuanian. So anyways, I harassed him into driving us, me, Nastya, and Alena from the German embassy because it was like 8 a.m. and we were literally falling asleep. It was our last day. Like I couldn't concentrate. And I was just like, you drove here in a car, didn't you? And he was like, yes. I'm like, So anyways, he gave us a ride while everyone else used the bus. And in his car, he had a bavovna, like a
Like a sign
car
for...
scent. No, car scent.
Okay.
Like a scented thing. And I was like, that's so cool because it's so random, right? And then everywhere you go where there is like a screen at checkout, half the screen is a Ukrainian flag.
Oh, wow.
There is like a lot of Ukraine support in Lithuania.
Yeah, Lithuania has, like, per capita, they support Ukraine, I think, the most still.
Yeah, well, they do Radarom, that fundraiser, every year. I mean, like, generally,
They've been smart in comparison to other countries, especially that border Russia. I think they just spent recently like $3 million to mine their entire border with Russia, which is a lot smaller than Ukraine's. But it's just like when I read that, I was like, why haven't we started doing that in 2014?
Yeah, no, they've been doing a lot, and they've been helping us a lot in terms of their like GDP and stuff, and they really do take everything seriously. It's the first place where I've ever gone to out of the places that support us where I didn't feel like people there treat it as our problem that they're in solidarity with. They treat it as our problem. We are just the first domino in it. So it's like, to them, supporting Ukraine is like, yes, it's like innate. It's like, it's almost like, it's so hard to explain, but I didn't even feel supported. I felt like we're in it together,
That's why it's confusing for me why, like, Polish don't, like, they've been very supportive, but why it's not as innate for them, because they also have the trauma from Soviet Union, right? Like, if you think of that as like, well, they've been with Ukraine, like they've experienced similar stuff to Ukraine, but so have a lot of other countries. But then, so it's just curious, like, it's just interesting, I think, how, like, well, what is it? Is it nationality? Is it
Hungary?
Yes.
Romania?
Like, I don't know.
So
it would be interesting to, like, try and understand, is it something in our DNA? Is it something...
I don't know, dude, but like it was the first time where I really, really felt like so understood. But we went to the Lithuanian military Stratcom, and we were talking to them about like the operations they do, and obviously part of it is like disinformation and following it, and they only follow Russian Kremlin information. So the information that comes out of the Kremlin and their like state-sponsored TV and stuff like that, because that's what they consider to be the threat to the national security. It was very strange because why are you not monitoring Russian liberal media?
Yeah, I mean, like, this is obvious propaganda.
And they kept saying that there is a different department that deals with it, which makes sense, but also like, and Lithuanians are also very defensive about this, but it's interesting because like, I'm not saying this because I know there are Lithuanians watching it to be like critical because you guys are doing the most, literally. But I think the military also needs to follow Russian liberal media because a lot of national security narratives originate in Russian liberal media because those are the people that are still the same imperialists. They just don't like Putin.
They just say it in a nicer way.
Yeah, and they're even more like divisive because people trust them. Maybe not in Lithuania, but in general, like, it is a big problem. So for me, it was a shocker that Lithuania actually doesn't, well, Lithuanian military Stratcom is just only focusing on the Kremlin disinfo, and that's it.
But also, like, maybe I'm confused, but, like, for me, disinfo is stuff that is, like not obviously super fake info that, like, somebody's like, the earth is flat. Like we know that it's fake. So it's the same.
Divisive narratives.
Okay, because for me, this info is more of like stuff that is very not obvious.
Yeah, no, I mean,
So I think like Russian, like RT type of propaganda, like other than to Russians, it's pretty much obvious to everyone that that's all fake.
not always, but yes. But that's what I'm saying is like I think that Russian liberal disinfo is more latent, and I personally think that that's worth focusing on. And the reason why I was like we were both with Nastya so like adamant about it is not because we want to criticize you, but because we've gone through this and we didn't pay attention to it, and now we're here, and we really don't want you to go through the same thing, because like once you let Russians in and
It's hard to get them out.
it's
like
it's like roaches. Yeah, literally what I was about to say.
Yeah, they apparently can survive the end of the world, which will hopefully. Because can you imagine how horrible that would be? The end of the world and only Russians.
And cockroaches. I mean, they're worth each other, I guess. They could live happily ever after. But so, two other things that surprised me about Lithuania. I was trying to find souvenirs from Lithuania. And it turns out that they produce a lot of different liquors, like Lithuania-specific liquors.
Yeah. They have a lot of Lithuania liquors.
I didn't know that because my friend in Warsaw, who was babysitting my car and who's our like family friend, I was like, "What do you want as a souvenir?" And he was like, "Oh, this like Lithuanian," and he didn't know what it was called, but he was like describing it to me. It was like an herbal something, kind of like
literally every single liquor from Lithuania.
yeah, kind of like a Bichirovka Jaeger mix, right? And I was just like, okay, so I didn't have time at all, so I came to the airport and I was with Nastya and Alena, and we walk into the airport and there's a wall of different Lithuanian liquors that all
Herbal.
that all kind of fit that description. And I was like, so I got a bunch. I gave my grandpa mead. I did give my friend like 3 different types of liquor and mead.
Nice.
And I brought one for the Frenchman because, I mean, like it's a weird Lithuanian liquor. I mean, maybe
Did
it's
you
not
guess
weird.
the right one for your friend?
I got him 3 different ones.
No, but did you ask him if it's the right one?
I don't think he knew. He just heard about it. But he was so happy to see all
course.
of these different liquors. Also, one of them is like very pretty designed. Actually, I'm going to ask Nazar. Nazar, бачиш, що там стоїть пляшка алкоголю? Подаш? Дякую.
Подаш?
Так, дякую.
Ooh,
Yeah,
it is
so,
very pretty.
So maybe if someone is Lithuanian, I mean, I did try to like pick out the prettiest one, but it's Tsepkeliu?
Kind of looks like our like Piano Vishna vibe.
Pangoliu? No. So apparently it's bitter.
Oh.
And apparently, like, I don't know. Okay, so point is, I got this.
If you're
and
Lithuanian, describe the flavor of this. I want to know.
so this is the funny thing is that like I kept asking Lithuanian people to tell me like what these things are, and no one could really tell me what this liquor resembles or any of the liquors
But I
really.
guess if it doesn't resemble anything other than itself, how do you say what it resembles?
Yeah.
Right?
But so I'm very intrigued by this. I like the design of this.
It's
It's really
beautiful.
pretty. Yeah, the other one was even prettier, but obviously said he being an architect, he decided to choose that one. So yeah, this one is going to go to the Frenchman, so I will report back, I suppose,
Yes, please
with the evaluation. And then yeah, that's
That's what shocked you. What else did shocked you?
what else shocked me is actually, and this is not going to be pretty, but like in a sense, you very much feel the Soviet presence in Lithuania, but I don't mean in people's mentalities. I mean like everywhere, sort of. There is a lot of like architectural things.
Like more than in Ukraine?
Well, it's weird because so Lithuania doesn't get a lot of subsidies from the EU, and they do like everything new and modern that they build is very Scandi and it's really cool, but you can also tell through like little things where the budget is lacking, like in the parks. Like I think this is the thing that screams Soviet Union to me because I know it and I've been there.
We've lived it.
Yeah. And so it's like when you go to a park and there is like concrete tiles, and in between those tiles there's like little grassy things growing through.
Like big concrete tiles, like not
Yes.
little ones, like big
Yes,
boy ones.
big concrete tiles
Yeah.
and little like grass patches
I know
that
exactly
are growing
what you're
through.
talking about. I can think of 3 parks.
Yeah, that used to be in Strelski Park in Lviv, but then they've recently updated it, and now it looks very nice and European because Ukrainian Catholic University is there, and that one is like also a super cool modern campus. But yeah, so there are like a lot of like little echoes of the Soviet Union, and I guess because like the Baltics are so like European in mentality and they're so like pro-democratic in mentality, I guess like I didn't realize how little the EU actually tries to give them to like
But
to,
also, they haven't been out of Soviet Union, like that long as
no,
well.
but it's been a while too. But I don't mean it in like I don't mean that as like a dig to them. I mean that as like holy crap! Like if you look at Poland and how much money Poland has gotten and how like developed and how many like
We've seen the difference in Poland over their last like 5 years.
yeah, but also like even before that, I mean Poland has gotten a lot of grants and it's like Poland has fantastic roads. Poland has like
Really new infrastructure.
yeah, super nice and for like Warsaw, Krakow. Like,
Amazing.
oh my God, they have all of these like world brands like
Maybe
Starbucks.
they knew about the war coming. They were like, we have to get the train system sorted. All the Ukrainians going to be coming through.
Yeah. But basically what I meant is like they have all of these like world brands, right? Like they have Google offices, they have everything. Literally everything. They have so many big companies and big tech giants and Starbucks and Sephora and
Poland
like
is a lot bigger than Lithuania. Like just from
Yeah.
that perspective, from like Google and stuff, it makes
Yeah.
more sense for
Of
them
course.
to be. But roads and like subsidy from Europe, absolutely, they
yeah,
should
yeah,
be
yeah, but
equally
that's
spreading
yeah,
between
but that's the thing,
countries.
and like, and listen, Lithuania is doing great. Like, I saw actually something very cool architecturally, where there were these buildings, and they looked super like hyper Scandinavian, and I was like, oh wow, that looks so cool. And then we kept driving by them, and I saw like the second line that's further from the road that hasn't been renovated yet, and they're Stalinkas. But they've been done in such a Scandinavian style that you can't see that they used to be Stalinkas. And I was like, wow. And that was really cool because you actually couldn't tell. They looked super Scandinavian.
That's a cool way to like you work with
Yeah.
what you've got.
Yeah. Like, actually.
I mean, I think in general, I have a soft spot for Lithuania because my dad worked with Lithuania quite a lot back in the day. And was where my family evacuated when the full scale started. They spent actually like 4 months or like 4 to 6 months in Lithuania. I don't remember.
Yeah, you
I
were
was in-
telling me this recently, and I had literally, I was like, what? I did not know.
Yeah, my family drove out of Kiev on the second day of invasion, and they drove all the way through Ukraine and then through Poland to Lithuania, which was a big drive, if you can imagine. But yeah, they were there. They were very lucky. We have like good friends who were supportive of my family.
Masha, this dog never sleeps as well as she does on you. This
Oh,
is like
I'm an anxious patter, so
yeah, because it's been like the third episode with you that this dog is completely passed the F out. And she now wants to sleep next to you. And this is like my baby that really loves
you
me.
just need to, instead of playing with your rings as your anxiety thing or like your ADHD thing, pat. Like my anxiety, like ADHD thing is patting.
I'm gonna take a picture of this because look at her freaking face. She's like
Out.
she's having an orgasm, this dog. Well, I mean, continuing in the OnlyFans theme of this episode, but honestly, she's in heaven.
But yes, Lithuania. I actually I've been to Lithuania quite like several times throughout my life because of my dad working. And I remember how I thought it was very interesting that like my dad's friends who were like in their 50s to 70s all spoke some level of Russian because Soviet Union. But everybody younger, so like my mom's generation, who was like at that point like 30 something, they might speak little bits and bobs, but like cannot have a conversation. And then my generation did not speak any Russian, which when I was a child, I was annoyed at that. And I was like, why the fuck doesn't everybody speak Russian? And
Yeah.
now I'm like, oh, good job, guys. It gives me hope.
None of the like actually, so we had a taxi driver who like heard us speaking a Slavic language, and I guess his English wasn't very good, and he was like trying really hard to speak Russian to sort of like I don't even know. Like,
Communicate, yeah.
And it was like he had a very like strong accent. It was really hard for him, and he was like trying very hard. So it's like, and he was probably in his 40s. So that's that's a person that's like heard some words. It's kind of like they know a little bit, like bits and bobs. Probably since like the mass migrations of nations, and people our age, like Paulius, he doesn't speak any
Well,
Russian
they
as
wouldn't
far
have
as
to
I
because
know.
before they had Russian in schools, the
Yeah.
same way we did. It was like you have a foreign language. Well, you have English, you have a second foreign language, and then you just have Russian. Like it's not really considered a foreign language. It's just there.
Thankfully,
And that's
I
what
didn't have
Russia
that.
wants reinstated in all over Ukraine, and
Yeah.
what Ukraine doesn't want done because,
Well, in Ukraine, they want Russian to be the first language.
well, yes, they want Russian to be the first language. But I don't know. I've been very curious about the topic of like Ukrainian Russian because like my family spoke Russian because they're from the east of Ukraine. But I was recently asking my mom, sorry, small tangent, but we'll get there. It actually kind of leads on to what I wanted to talk about as well about my trip. I was asking my mom, did you learn Ukrainian in school? All these things. And she was telling me that not only, like, she was growing up during Soviet Union in the city of Bakhmut that now is destroyed. And they were taught Ukrainian, but as an elective, and you could opt out of it for health reasons. I don't know what health reasons could be out there. I'm just genuinely curious. You could be like, my brain does not comprehend Ukrainian. I don't know. But the teachers, my jaw doesn't open. I have the Russian jaw. But the most interesting for me was the teachers who taught in Russian got paid more than teachers who taught in Ukrainian.
Yeah.
Which, elective, whatever, it's easy to kind of say, they just didn't care. But this is a very like purposeful, targeted, like a smart way to eradicate a Ukrainian language from schools. Because I mean, even if teachers spoke Ukrainian at home,
they're going to teach in Russian.
They're going to teach in Russian because they're going to learn more, earn more money. And it's not even like the Ukrainian language class, it's all the other classes that were taught in Russian.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's horrific, but genius.
Before you jump, I actually just remembered something. Speaking of like Russian and weird like interactions, I had two, one in Poland and one in Lithuania.
I was about to ask you, have you met any Russians in the airport?
Not at the airport. Oh my God. I know you did because you were like staring someone down. But when we got to the hotel, which is like the same hotel that I've been staying at every time I'm in Warsaw because it's in like a convenient neighborhood and it's a very nice hotel. Actually, it's considered to be like a really bougie hotel in New York.
The one that you suggested to me? Yeah, it was nice.
Yeah, it's considered to be a very bougie hotel in New York, but it's a 3-star hotel in Warsaw. But it's like very funky and modern and like young, like I like that hotel and it's very often on discount and stuff. So anyways, we get there, right? And we walk up to the reception and Alena says hi in English and I say dobry wieczór in Polish. And this woman literally starts responding to us back in Russian. And then I keep speaking to her in a mix of Polish and English. And Alena, well, both of us are also brain dead. And both of us are severely uncomfortable and also,
but also
like,
showing
why?
that you're not speaking Russian back to her.
Yeah. And I like gave her my Ukrainian passport, not like this. I gave it to her like this. And she still continued speaking in Russian. And
Was
like,
she Ukrainian?
I don't know. No, she sounded quite Russian. And I was like, and I was too tired, right? But also I didn't want to let it go. So like before she gave us like her final like whatever, I stopped her and I was like, hey, I'm so sorry. And no, I was like, hey, do you mind using Polish or English, not Russian, because neither one of us speaks it? And she was like, oh, and literally started speaking in Polish. Like very good Polish too. But it was such a weird interaction because why? And Alena was like, oh, maybe because you said dobry wieczór, which sounds like dobry wieczór.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, but we're in Poland. Why would you immediately assume that whatever?
Unless
so this
you're
interaction
Imperial,
kept like I couldn't get over it. So the next day at the reception when we were checking out, I was like, hey, I don't really know how to bring this up, but I feel like I should. So last night when we checked in at this time, there was a receptionist and like nothing wrong, but this is what she did, and she did that for no reason because I think that she can either start speaking to us in Polish or in English because it's a hotel in Poland and English is an international language. And unless I ask her if she speaks Russian or German or French or like whatever.
Or if she sees your passport from that country and she knows your native language, she can assume and start speaking your native language.
Yeah, but I like told the other person and she was like, she looked mortified. She was like, I'm so sorry. It's a very touchy subject, especially now, like blah, blah. I'm like, just please talk to her so it doesn't happen to someone else because I don't want to hear Russian. No. And I also don't want a person assuming that I speak Russian. And I was like, I drove for 17 hours. I'm a zombie. And I literally...
Because of Russia.
Yeah. And I also literally didn't even know, like normally I would have so much to say. Oh my God. You know me. Like I'm not one to bite my tongue. But I was just so like, I was so off that I didn't even know like what to do about it.
But it's also very startling, right?
Yeah.
Like for me, like I always get entertained when you come to Poland, and like I always, when I'm abroad, I always assume like I speak English. English is pretty much my native language at this point. So I speak in receptions in English. And then they look at my passport and they start speaking Ukrainian to me because like a lot of Ukrainians work in hotels now and a lot of Ukrainians go through hotels. And I was like, oh yes, makes sense. Fair enough. So you should try Polish, then Ukrainian, then English. That makes the most sense at the moment in Poland.
Yeah. I mean, like, well, I've been trying to practice my Polish, and if they ask me if it's more comfortable for me in English, I say like, no, you can speak Polish. I understand it. Like, I'll say that in English if I don't know how to say it in Polish, but like, I would rather practice.
I understand a lot of Polish.
I understand most Polish, like, but I also honestly have a language barrier in Polish. I think I speak Polish a lot better than I think I do, simply because I have this like Lviv person thing where we all grew up knowing a lot of Polish because we use Polish slang, and then we would go to Poland and speak Lviv Polish or Lvivish, and that would be super disrespectful. Polish people were like annoyed at this because it's like, you're not speaking Polish. Like, stop thinking it's Polish, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of like not like, it's kind of, I don't even know how to
like
explain it. It's kind of like Spanish that is Miami Spanish. Like, it's a very different
It's
vibe.
like Spanglish, but like Ukrainian-lish, you know?
It also depends on where you are in America, I think, because like, at least from what I've heard, like Florida Spanish is very different to like LA Spanish.
It's like Pokrainian, Polish Ukrainian, you know? But so anyways, and I'm really conscious about doing that. So if someone starts speaking fast and asking me difficult questions, I'm like, my brain just goes into a freeze, which is funny because I don't have that in any other language. Like, if I know something, I will like make up the rest. I will figure out how to say it. But in this particular situation, like, I really want to be like proper. So yeah. And then the second situation was actually, we were at the, this was so funny. It was me, Nastya, and two, Czech people that we met through the trip that we like were hanging out with, and we were sitting at the hotel bar the first night, like after 11, just having a drink, and we were sitting there for an hour and a half straight, just shitting on Russia and Russians and what should happen to Russia for it to like cease to exist and how it could like become a normal country. And there was a table next to us, and this person kept like staring at us. And then as we got up to leave, he basically like gets up and starts like telling us that if we've never been to Russia, we shouldn't talk about Russia. And he's like, I'm Russian. I was born in Russia. And he looks to be like 40. Yeah. He looks to be 40. And like, I mean, there was a lot that he was like saying, and I was just like, okay, so why don't you live in Russia? And he's like, I moved here when I was 18 with my mom. And I'm like, well, you're an adult. She's an adult. Like,
if you love it so much, go back.
Yeah, and he was like saying something about like, oh, you have no reason to say anything about Russia if you've never been there. I've been there, blah blah. And I'm like, okay, dude, you know, Russia wants me to be Russia without me wanting to be Russia because I wake
Russia's
up
coming closer to my home.
Like, I wake up every other night from like Shahed drones literally flying towards my window, so like I can have opinions on Russia without you having to tell me anything. And I'm like, how about this? You can have an opinion on Russia when you move to Russia and have your opinion from there. And when I stop waking up from Shahed drones, then you can have an opinion on Russia, because otherwise you're sitting here in Lithuania and you live in Berlin since you were 18 and you're defending your holy motherland. And he was like, he kept trying to like whatever. And I was like, listen, what do you want from us? And he's like, nothing. I'm like, okay, great. Goodbye. Because like,
there's a lot of
but also
Russians abroad who, you know, like grew up in not Russia, but then they still have that like deep pride of being Russian.
40. He's been in Berlin
the majority
for
of his life outside of Russia.
22 years. And he kept like talking about how like great Russia is and like whatever.
That's what I'm saying. I think it's raised in them as part of their mentality because it's nice. I mean, like, arguably, right? The same way I think Americans have that. Like, it's nice to think that your nation is the great nation, right? The nation that brought like great movies and inventions and took over the space. No wonder there was like a whole big space race between Soviet Union and America. Like, it's the same imperialistic point of view as like, we are great, the rest are kind of
But it was just
sad
like,
when it comes from people who like don't live there. But the same way with like, you know, Americans, like the Russian Americans who like moved there when they were 20 and now they're 80 and they're still like go and vote for Putin.
But it's like my whole point. It's sort of like, dude, like you've lived in Berlin for 22 years. You don't want to return to Russia. So what that you moved there when you were, I don't remember if he said 8 or 18. He had quite an accent, so it was hard to like understand him. But anywho, you're an adult now. So is your mom. His very Russian-looking girlfriend was sitting in front of him, and it was really funny because he was just like spending his like precious time just yelling and arguing with us. And it was sort of like, how cowardly is it? Like, you waited for us to get up and you wanted to like say that like nightcap thing, right? And it's like, oh, dude, you found the wrong people.
From coming from a wrong trip.
Yeah, like actually fighting Russian disinformation, which in majority is Russian these days. But yeah, so I know that you had some airport encounters with Russians.
Well, we have a hoodie that both of us have that in big
Russia is a
red
terrorist state.
letters says Russia is a terrorist state. Last time I traveled abroad, I wore it as a point, being like, if I see any Russians in the airport, I'm gonna at least make them uncomfortable. Because I actually had some people asking me like, don't you feel like like, are you okay? Like, are you sure you should be wearing that in an airport? Like, people don't like anything with terrorism in the airport. And I was like, I'm not saying that I'm a terrorist or like terrorism is great. I'm saying that Russia's a terrorist state. And honestly, as soon as Russia stops the war and like, is accountable for all the war crimes they've committed in Ukraine, at least, then I'm going to stop wearing that hoodie. Until then, Russia is a terrorist state. Once they can like atoned for all of their
That's
crap,
not going to be in our lifetime.
I'm just saying that, like, I'm not going to keep wearing it if Russia starts all of a sudden being a decent country. Like, I'm not wearing, any other country as a terrorist state for funsies. I'm saying that as a statement, right?
But I'm just giving you a very big side eye.
No. It's it
Russia
all
all
comes
of a
into a part of my experience because a lot of people kept asking me like this time around for some reason that, but it's not all Russians that are bad, right? And I'm like, really? So we'll get there. So I was wearing this hoodie. Russia's a terrorist state that usually gets a lot of from Polish people, which I appreciate. I was traveling through Poland to Ireland, and I had to fly through Stockholm because silly planning on my part. But yes, finally, it has happened. I bumped into a Russian person in the airport while wearing that hoodie. I even recorded it into my stories. But what I did. So there was a man. We were lining up to a line to go into the airport, into the airplane. So, and there was a man talking in Russian, which I don't really mind that much. I usually get curious because I kind of judge Ukrainians who speak Russian while being abroad. So I was curious if it's a Ukrainian. So I was looking at him, and then I see the big red passport, and I was like, "Alrighty-o." And then I realized that he's in line for the same airplane that I am. But he's in the second group while I'm in group 4. So I haven't been called yet. And he's already standing in a long, long line. So what I do, I get up from my seat, which was conveniently right in front of where he was standing, like a little bit diagonally. And I stand up, and I was like kind of sitting like this because it's a long trip. And I stand up very straight, and I just stare him down. And I'm not exaggerating. I was recording the entire time. I published like 20 seconds.
I know,
I was
I saw.
staring him down for like good 4 minutes. And at first, I don't think he realized. So he was just kind of standing, like, twiddling his thumbs, whatever. And then he, like, looked at me. I think then he read it. Then he was like, fuck. And then he started, like, trying to, like, not look at me. But it was getting progressively harder while he was getting closer to me. It was a horrific situation for him. And I wasn't doing anything. I was just standing. And then, which for me was a personal victory, which was really timely because my group was called, he hid his passport. Like, he literally was standing with it in his hands with a ticket and a passport when you go to see the lady. Yeah. He was, like, and shoved it in his pocket, and I was like, you might as well burn it. And then it's fine. I didn't see him after that, but honestly,
sad.
I have very mixed feelings when I see, like, Russian men abroad, right? Because he looked mobilizable age, so, like, I'd rather them be somewhere in Stockholm.
Mobilizable age, yeah.
Well, somewhere between the ages of that Russian deem appropriate to fight. I'd rather all the Russians to be in Stockholm or, anywhere other than Russia, so like less of them come into Ukraine to fight. So if you want to escape Russia, go for it. We're all for it. Like, we don't want to be part of Russia, so anybody who also doesn't want to be part of Russia, we fully support. Just don't do it in Ukraine. Do it somewhere else. But yeah, that was a victory. And I was coming in really, like, high spirits into this not politics related trip. It was about, like, mobile journalism, so it had nothing to do with like me advocating for Ukraine, but I always do. So for my my speech, I was in Vyshyvanka, which I had to, like, I was happy to tell people that, like, oh, it's not our traditional clothing, it's called Vyshyvanka, blah 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 blah. And accidentally, somehow, I kept getting stuck in conversations that I really thought were past. Like, but it's not all Russians that are bad, which I don't think all Russians are bad. I just think that all Russians that do nothing are responsible for this war. So it's not about good or bad, it's about responsibility.
Well, it's also like the same as like not all men, right? Like, yeah, but most. It's not necessarily about the good men or about the good Russians. It's about the bad Russians that now are majority and are causing a lot of really deadly stuff and suffering happening to Ukrainians.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then I'm also saying that, like, because the reason I was really getting frustrated is the people that were surrounding me are big professionals in journalism field. Like, I'm not saying they're journalists, but they're in that overall field. And a lot of them have strong following, and a lot of them have been in journalism field for many years.
Yeah.
And like, I had this conversation with like this man who was in his, I don't know, 60s, and he was like, "Oh, I would like to follow you. You said the Kyiv Independent." So he types Kyiv Independent into his Instagram, like we're walking together. He's like, "It's not coming up." I take a look because he spelled Kiev Independent, I-E-V, K-I-E-V, which is the Russian spelling. And I'm like, well, that's because you're, and I wasn't like, like I wasn't mad about it because like I'm not expecting everybody to know that, and that is a big deal. But I just say to him, well, because you're spelling it wrong, it's actually K-Y-I-V. I struggle with spelling like
K-Y-I-V,
yeah. Kyiv. And this is how you spell it, and this is the correct way of spelling. And his friend chips in, but that's how we always spelled it. And I was like, yeah, we also had slavery. Should we start doing that again? Like, it's the same logic of like calling, I don't know, Istanbul Constantinople. Like, like, yes, you can call it that, or like, I don't know.
That's actually a great
Bombay calling Mumbai. Like, it's literally you saying that, like, oh no, that, British Empire still owns England. Or, it's literally just outdated and also showing who's the owner of that land.
The British Empire still does own England. You meant India.
Oh, I meant India, yes.
Yeah.
Well, good that British Empire still owns England.
England is the British Empire.
Yeah. I meant India. Sorry. Long week.
It's okay.
Also Pakistan, India. Oh my God.
Yes.
Were you also one of the many Ukrainians who opened their chat for the big boom boom and read India and Pakistan exchanging like missiles flying between India, Pakistan, explosions in Kiev?
Yeah.
And because all of us were like, are they coming from Pakistan? Like, I remember having those thoughts because, like, when you just wake up at 3 a.m., you're like, India, Pakistan, explosions in Kyiv. And you're like, oh my God, are we at war with India now? Like, who else? Like, Hungary, India, Pakistan, all of them are against Ukraine.
So I was literally away for that, right? And I was like having my lovely little sleep.
Ooh, I got hot.
Yeah, I was very passionate. But like the thing is, I forgot to turn off notifications, like, and put my phone on sleep mode, because this is what I thought I was gonna do in my little hotel in my little Lithuania. Okay, I was like, nice.
No, I keep my
No.
on.
I always do, but this time because it was so like intense, I was like, I'm gonna put it on like whatever. And then I like woke up and I was like, India attacks Pakistan, and I'm just like, nope.
Not today.
Like, not today. Like, I'm sorry, absolutely not. This is my me time. This is my vacation. I'm supposed to sleep in this nice hotel bed. So what?
I'll
that
deal
it's
with
3
World War
hours.
III in like 2 days when I'm back in Kyiv.
It's like, so what that this time I'm sleeping 3 hours because I'm doing a lot of work, but it's not because of missiles. Like, it's 3 hours of sleep, highly deserved.
Yeah, it's very bizarre. It's actually kind of tying into what I miss about Ukraine when I'm traveling, is that I think we all, like, our reality is obviously real, but it's very bizarre in comparison to the rest of the world reality. I'm assuming that's how North Koreans might feel if they leave North Korea. Just because, like, we're so trauma bonded and we're so used to this bizarre, not normal experience that when we leave the bubble of the war zone, we're like, the fuck is this? Where did all these men come from? Like, airplanes? Like, we're kind of like wild people being just like...
I also think, like, loud noises actually don't trigger me in Ukraine, but trigger me abroad.
Yes.
And I think it's because our bodies actually are like, ooh,
Relaxed.
safety. And then, like, there are these noises that remind us of not safety, and, like, our brain doesn't adjust accordingly.
And also, it's that feeling of that, like, the importance, right? So when Pope died, and yes, Ukraine is not Catholic, so, well, the majority of Ukraine is not Catholic. We're Orthodox Christian. So it wasn't...
when you said Ukraine is not Catholic, I was like, speak for
Sorry,
yourself. Halachina,
Sorry.
quite.
The majority, as far as I know, the majority of Ukraine is still Orthodox
But
Christian.
we're not Roman Catholics though, and
Yes.
we're Greek Catholics.
So long story short, Ukrainians were curious about Pope dying and sad.
Yes, they were very curious.
But we weren't as invested in it as many other countries are.
Freaking Pope that constantly keeps trying to make Ukrainians and Russians friends.
I know. At least he donated to drones.
Okay, but to be fair, I feel like every single post on Threads, especially, which is like a pit of Ukrainian, just like of in Ukrainian language of Ukrainians, just like putting out the worst of their feelings and desires and thoughts. So anyways, I think that every single Ukrainian that commented on the Pope's death on Threads, to at least from what I've seen, was like, yes, it's really sad that he died, but
I think the Kyiv Independent wrote a similar post. It's like, unfortunately, the Pope has that. Here's all the reasons he was wrong. It was something along the lines. It was very different language, but it was kind of that vibe.
Like, none of us, we were like, hey, where is Ivan Pavlo the second, the John Paul II, the Polish Pope, like the one that was from Poland, because that man would have known what to say.
Yeah. Yeah, so we don't condone any Pope dying, but I was talking with people who work in BBC and CNN during my trip, and they were like, "Oh my God, the week," I think at that point it was last week when Pope Francis died was insane that day, and I was like, it was a Tuesday in Ukraine, literally, because I was at work when that news broke. We all were like, "Oh well," because it's. In comparison to all of our big news, fucking nuclear war or Reshnik's, peace deals being, dangled in front of us literally every day, Pope dying is really not that big of a deal.
I can already see this being in the short reel mix. And looking at Tanya, I can already see Tanya seeing it.
I don't know, they're just sharing how, traumatic it was for them. I was like, imagine that for the last 3 years nonstop. I was just trying to explain it to them. They cannot. Yeah, they just cannot understand. So, unfortunately, the Kyiv debacle continued several times, and I just got tired explaining to people because, most of them understood, and I'm glad that I was there in 2025 to tell them about the fact that they should spell Kyiv the Ukrainian way, like all the other cities in Ukraine, that you need to spell the Ukrainian way, because it might seem like a very little thing, and I'm saying it not to you because you do that. I'm saying it to people who might not be doing that. It might seem like a very little thing or an inconvenience or something silly, but it's a really big thing for Ukrainians, and it's a big part of resistance and not playing into what Russia wants. It's pretty much you just might as well giving them up Crimea, and you are doing that in a way. You're soft power giving them up all these cities. And I was talking to my new friend who is Crimean Tatar, and he was saying that for him the most painful thing is that Russia renamed everything in Crimea, so there's almost no original Crimean Tatar names, and he says, I hope the first thing we do once we get back Crimea is just rename everything back to the way it's supposed to be named.
There's already projects on what to do with that.
So that was one big thing that kind of got me, but then I couldn't stop thinking that I miss Ukraine, because in Ukraine I think all of us have this understanding that we all can die tomorrow. But I am so confused why the rest of the world doesn't have that concept. We all can die tomorrow, not just Ukrainians. We have a higher chance of dying tomorrow because Oreshnik, Putin, the rest. But Pope Francis wasn't planning to die, right?
Okay, Masha, but he died of natural causes.
I know, but he wasn't planning to die on that specific day, right? He could have pulled through another 5 days. He could have died 3 days earlier. He did not plan to die right after JD Vance came. Nobody plans to die.
I absolutely loved the Indian, that Narendra Modi, not Narendra Modi, Dalai Lama, was it? Who was it who canceled? It was a spiritual leader.
Oh, after the...
every one of the older spiritual leaders started...
Why didn't it work on Putin? Has he not met Putin yet? He's an older spiritual leader in a way. Maybe JD Vance should really spend some time with Putin, I'm telling you.
He probably should.
Who was the one who was it? I confused them. The dickheads who go talk to Putin. Who was the last one who went and spoke to Putin?
Witkoff, probably.
Witkoff. So I was reading today that apparently Witkoff was using Kremlin translators to talk to Putin. So Putin literally could have been saying like Teletubbies, 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 and the translator is like saying everything that whatever he would like to hear. And I was like, how dumb have you?
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
yeah,
What?
yeah,
Not bringing your own translator?
yeah, yeah.
Like, just
But also,
insanity.
I do need to. I need to let you know that it's 10:58 as we speak, and
Oh,
in
we
2
should.
minutes we need to wrap up because we live in Ukraine, and
We
at
have
midnight
curfew.
there is curfew, and so I need to deliver everyone on set here that you don't see home, and I'll use these 2 minutes to say this. On our last episode with Masha, the one that we recorded before Yulia Tymoshenko was here, not the former prime minister, someone commented, the cross 1187 said, pre-record episodes so not to lose viewers in the long term, like that the show always goes on when neither Masha nor yourself are available.
Just
you got
for
your
you,
wish.
We
Your
have done
wish.
it. And hopefully you enjoyed our outfits while we were doing it.
Sorry, I kept like trying to see if, my...
Boobies are out?
No, what's the name of these flowers? I forgot. Anyways, we're not paying attention to it.
It's a Ukrainian brand. You should pay attention to it.
Katimo, yes, please do pay attention to it. It's fantastic. So yeah, that's what we're gonna end on. Masha, I feel like I need to give her a hug because she was very worked up there. For good reason.
It's been a long Monday. We might be hit with a Reshnik. I mean, it's been a long several years.
Yeah, and in case that we don't get hit with the Ryashnik, please do subscribe to this channel so you can watch us
Especially
more.
if we get hit with a Reshnik, subscribe to this channel. At least so we'll get famous post-mortem.
Yeah, as a fuck you to Russia. And yeah, I mean, like the video, subscribe, notifications, leave comments. Also, do leave comments, give us your ideas, and, tell us what you were doing when the Pope died. I don't know. See you
And
next
thanks
time.
for still being here.
Yeah, and we'll see you next time.